All right. Hi, everybody. And your patience and your attention span's phenomenal. And this is going to be worth it. Because this is a guy that, if he had stayed another year at Utah, too damn good, he got drafted number 1 overall, he'd have been right in the mix for the Campbell Trophy. I know that.
I wish. It's something for me looking back. I mean, obviously, we'll get into it a little bit, but everything that this award embodies, that Bill embodied, was kind of what I dreamt about as a kid. I mean, that's what I dreamt about. I wanted to go be a student athlete. I wanted to be part of something bigger. The idea that you could do both at a high level, right? Like you didn't have to pick, that you could do it all and try to achieve that, and that was something to aspire to. And I'm obviously so fortunate that I got to kind of play out that dream, and one school gave me a chance, and it was Utah. It was the only school that let me do that, and I had this a burning desire to see if I could do it, if I could kind of live up to it. I obviously had a lot of doubts, a lot of unknowns. I wasn't highly recruited, and looking back on it, changed my life. Yeah.
This is a story, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Alex a little bit when he played for the 49ers, and one of the best people I've ever met in sports. Resilience, strength, and I want to ask you, I've never asked you about this story, and everybody, you know a lot of the Alex story of recent years. I want to go back. 2010, you were drafted in 05, right?
Yep.
So 2010, that's 5th year or 6th year. And it has been really a rocky road for you. You've had a lot of change in your professional career. Well, now Mike Singletary is the head coach of the 49ers. There's a lot of hope. The season doesn't start very well. It's really struggling. 49ers are playing a game on a Sunday night at Candlestick Park, and at the start of the game doesn't go well, and I look down on the sideline. I'm calling the game, and I look down on the sideline, and Philadelphia has the ball, and the backup quarterback's warming up, and I can't remember which backup it was. We had a few.
David Carr.
Was it David?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We also had Troy Smith.
I just remember that because the entire stadium was chanting his name.
Yes. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
But so I promise I want Alex to tell the story. But I look down. So David Carr is warming up to go in the game, and I remember talking about it with my partner. And then the next thing I see is number 11 standing pretty close to the grill of the head coach, Mike Singletary, okay? And that was pretty bold because Mike Singletary was a presence. Number 11 got in his grill. Now, Philadelphia, the possession changes, whatever happens. The 49ers get the ball. You know who runs out to play quarterback? Number 11. Tell that story.
That's a story I haven't told in a long time. It's actually a day that, looking back on it, was kind of an inflection point in my career and in my life. Prior to that, I think that was my year 6, and my first 6 years in the NFL were tumultuous, to say the least. I mean, it did not go as planned as I had hoped. Prior to that, football was something that my dad didn't let me play growing up. My dad played college football and coached it, but he didn't let me play growing up, and I was like dying to play, but I played all these other sports, club soccer, basketball, baseball. But I finally got to play when I was in high school, and it was something that I just soaked up. I couldn't get enough of. And I loved everything about it. And I was fortunate enough to play on a really good high school team. In fact, my high school running back was a guy named Reggie Bush. So we were pretty good. And I had very little to do with that. We ran the wing T, so I was like master of the handoff. I think my senior year, I threw like 5 passes a game, honestly. And so I wasn't highly touted. I didn't get recruited. I had like no stars. No one expected anything of me. No one expected anything of me in high school. In fact, my freshman year, I was so small and so slow. My dad legitimately asked me if I wanted to go run cross country instead. Like if he thought that was a better idea for me, like more in the cards. But I know I was like something, like I said, I'd been hungry for and wanted to play. So I did it. Anyway, fast forward, have an amazing high school career. But still, no one thinks I can play. I'm not getting recruited by anybody. I had great grades. My dad was also happened to be my high school principal. So education was a focal point in our household. And I'd done really well in school, so I was getting recruited by some really great institutions, just not good football programs. And I kind of had this decision, like, hey, do I want to go play, have some Ivy Leagues, no offense to any Ivy Leaguers in here, or like go take a chance to go to Utah and play. And I really wrestled with this, and in hindsight, I'm even shocked that I still made the decision to go to Utah and play. Because again, I had this, like, I wanted to find out if I could do it. And so I go, and again, I get to Utah, no expectations. No one's thinking anything of me, right? Like, no, there's a lot of freedom in that environment, right? Like, you can just go cut it loose. I can make mistakes. I mean, again, no one's expecting anything out of me. And I flourished in it. Obviously incredibly lucky. Guy named Urban Meyer came in. We went on a run there. Obviously a lot of luck as well. Well, then all of a sudden, fast forward, a couple weeks, I'm getting drafted #1 overall in the NFL draft. I mean, I am on every newspaper in the country. I'm the face and future of the San Francisco 49ers, a legacy, a team steeped in quarterback play, right? I mean, like the bar is set pretty high. And I'm 20 years old. 2.5 years earlier, I couldn't get a scholarship. And so, and everything changed for me overnight, everything. My entire psychology towards the game of football. I carried a ton of anxiety. I felt like I had to be perfect. I was absolutely terrified to make any mistakes, right? And I played like that. I went out on the field and I played like that, completely distracted by my own self, my own anxiety towards the game, right? Because all of a sudden, I got to be this perfect thing right now. I got to be this franchise quarterback right now. And it affected me. I remember running out of the tunnel, getting ready to play in games, and I'm thinking about 15 other things other than playing quarterback, which is hard enough, right? I'm thinking about what they're going to say about me in the paper or talk radio, or the fans going to boo me. I'm completely distracted, and played like that a long time. I'd have some good games, but then I just could never find that consistency. And we were obviously, you were there, Ted. It was bad as an organization. We weren't very good. And it comes down to this. 6 years later, here I am. I've been kind of beating my head against this other way, right? Like, consumed with what other people were thinking about me, trying to be perfect. And I remember we're playing the Eagles, and the Eagles were really good. And it's Sunday night football. And they were clearly a better football team than us. But we go out, and I threw a few touchdown passes early in the first quarter, and we're going back and forth. We couldn't stop them at all. They were lighting up the scoreboard, but we're kind of going blow for blow. And that's typical then for me. I just kept trying to do too much. I was trying to do too much. I'd never played like that, in my past, college, high school. I did my job. I played quarterback. I did what the offense told me to do. I did what the coaches, my assignment. But all of a sudden, I got in this place where I felt like all the weight was on me, and I had to go make the plays. And then, sure enough, I make a couple mistakes in that Philly game, and the entire stadium literally starts chanting David Carr, and he's my backup. And it's just like, I'm trying so hard to be perfect. And it really, at that point, became apparent to me. All of a sudden, Mike Singletary's in my face. It's a national TV game. The stick is packed. And this isn't working. It was really kind of rock bottom for me. The way I've been trying here is not working. And really, I'm talking about the mindset towards the problem, right? Towards the adversity. I have this challenge. Can I go play quarterback at a high level and play winning football and help my team? And I've been doing it this other way, completely distracting myself, worried about all these things that I have zero control over. And that was really where it became apparent to me, I gotta change my ways. I got to do something else. I'm in a bad space mentally. And football, it's something in a locker room that doesn't get talked about. As a young guy, I'd sit in that locker room before games, consumed with my own thoughts and voices in my head and self-doubt, right? God, what if I make a mistake? What if I throw an interception? What if I embarrass myself out there? And I'm consumed with that. I'm not getting ready to play, right? I'm not thinking about what are the New England Patriots going to run, and if they do this, I'm going to do that. I'm not focused on the details. Again, I'm in my own head. And that doesn't get talked about in the locker room. And I thought I was the only one going through it, sitting on that stool in there getting ready, my anxiety just heightening. And I think I'm the only one. And I'm trying to pretend I'm a tough football player, and I'm burying this. And I'm trying to pretend that I'm not dealing with it, and I'm ignoring it. I'm kind of, And that was the moment. That was the day. No, I'm not in a good place. This is not working, and I need to do something else. And it coincided, that kind of kick-started. Obviously, that season went sideways. we made a change at the head coaching position, and we brought in a guy from this university, a guy named Jim Harbaugh, who, as quirky as he is, one of the most amazing things is Jim does not care what other people think. Yeah. And here's a guy that played 15 years of my position. He played for the San Diego Chargers. I grew up in San Diego. I remember going to Jack Murphy Stadium and watching Jim Harbaugh play. So all of a sudden now I'm playing for him. And he embodied what I was trying to get to. I mean, he literally, like, the khakis, the tucked in shirt, like, he doesn't care at all what people think about him. And it was a great example for me to see. Right? I knew I wanted to change that pivot point of the Phillies game, and I'm sorry I'm getting so long-winded, but like that whole year of my life really changed my career. I think I'd have been out of football if all that hadn't happened.
And that's a great call. I've never heard you say that before about Jim, because we had a gentleman here who asked a great question earlier and about using your voice. And that's what it triggered me thinking about this game, because you used your voice, and what you called it, a pivot point. You may not make the Harbaugh year if it isn't for that Philly.
For sure, no doubt. And I think acknowledgement for me was key. Like finally acknowledging, right? Like stop burying this. And then, so funny. I ended up. I played a long time. I was so fortunate. I played 16 years, and you play long enough, and you realize really quick, there's not a guy in that locker room that isn't dealing with self-doubt. Like that every single person in the NFL, all these big bad dudes who were like all-American, right? Everybody deals with self-doubt. Every single person. And it's a little bit what we do with it. That's the difference maker, right? And so that you're not alone. And for me, the guys that were able to refocus themselves, to move past their self-doubt, right? It didn't consume them. They were able to focus in on the details. Like you were talking about backstage, what was Bill Campbell's favorite coaching phrase?
Get your head out of your
Get your head out of your... to me, that comes back to getting focused, right? And it's easy to say that. That's like something that's very easy to say. But to really be dialed in, and teams, to do anything high-achieving, whether in sports or business or anything, takes an immense focus on the details of what you're doing. It's being in the present moment. And again, for me, I spent the first 6 years of my career, I'm in the middle of a stadium, a national team playing football. In my mind, I might as well be, I could be in 15 other places other than right there. And for me, it comes back to being, I like to talk about a what's next mentality. Constantly what's next, right? Good, bad, indifferent, you're moving on to what's next. You're constantly focused on what's in front of you. Right? We far too often, we make a great play or a great game and we want to beat our chest or crow, and we play bad and we sulk and we can't get that out of our head either. And none of that is helping us for what's coming next. And it was a vital learning experience for me. So finding your voice, being able to acknowledge where I was at, being honest with myself, and then being able to move forward to what's next. And ultimately, obviously, changed my career and then really changed my life with my injury. When I really talk about dealing with self-doubt, about what the rest of my life was going to look like. Take football out of it, but
I'm amazed to hear you say, because you used a word a couple times that I think everybody here that played football, pretend. You don't hear that word. At least I don't ever hear that around football, pretend. And when the way you described Harbaugh's arrival, because he doesn't pretend at all.
No.
You could stop pretending.
For sure, yeah. And getting back to a point where I'm not gonna live like that anymore. I'm not gonna play like that anymore, right? I would go home with my wife and kids, and I would, again, still distracted, even there, right? It was consuming. It never left me. So that enough was enough. I wasn't gonna do that anymore. I was determined, to stop pretending, and I'm gonna be focused on the details, whether I'm at home with my family and locked in and being in the moment, or whether I'm at work. Preparing for the amazing challenge of playing professional football. Like that, this isn't going to last forever, and certainly for me, get started making the most of it before it passes me by.
Another memorable moment that I witnessed about Alex Smith, again, speaks to who you are. So you said you were the master of the handoff in high school. Well, you unfortunately became a master of a handoff in your NFL career. Yeah. And the first time you handed off through injury, the quarterback job, San Francisco 49ers end up going to the Super Bowl. Alex is now the backup. Handles it as masterfully, the utter textbook of how to handle a bad hand. You get dealt a bad hand. The 49ers lose the Super Bowl, if you remember. It was a heartbreaking game at the end to Baltimore. The next morning, team's getting ready to leave the hotel in New Orleans to go to the airport. And everybody's gathering and collecting, and I'm, my wife and I are on the outside of the group getting ready to go, but I'm watching probably 2/3 of the guys in the team going up to Alex Smith, sign something, shake your hand. Because they knew Alex was going to move on, and the respect they had for you. I don't know if did that register with you? Because it sure as hell registered with me.
I think for me, the 2 years prior to that, so Jim Harbaugh comes in, and I feel like, again, it was this inflection point, and I'm going to try something else, and all of a sudden my career takes off. Once you know it, I ended up having a couple career years. I led the league in completion percentage, passer rating, a bunch of stats. The year I got hurt, 10 games in, I finally feel like my career, I'd put in all this time, I'd worked through all these 6 rough, long years and learned a lot, and now I'm in a better place, and I'm kind of taking off. It's like, here we go. I still feel like I was young and had a lot of football left ahead of me, and then, wham, I get a concussion, and, Cap comes in and really goes on a historic run. Cap still holds records. It was, I still don't think the Green Bay Packers know who has the football in that playoff game.
Exactly right.
And I felt like the guy that had been sitting at the slot machine, putting in coins, doing his time, and I got up for a second, and someone sat down and hit the jackpot, right? And I'm there on the sidelines watching the Super Bowl, right? I felt like, man, it was my opportunity, it was my time, and it just watching it pass me by. But I think also a great challenge in that moment, everything that I learned, I can sit and sulk and be a bad teammate and, selfish and feel sorry for myself in this moment, or again, what's next? I can get ready for whatever's coming next. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know how it was going to present itself, but I could do everything in my power to be ready for it. And I could also, it's so convenient to be a good teammate when things are going well, right? Hey, that's easy. But what does it say about you in that moment that, that was hard and it was very public, but what kind of teammate was I going to be, right? And these were guys that I had built tremendous bonds with, years-long bonds, working to get to this point. And could I be happy? Could I put the team first, right? And I think that's obviously sometimes a hard thing in pro sports, but I think the good teams do it, and the good teammates do it. And so for me, determined, that I wasn't going to be selfish. I was going to try and be a good teammate through all of that. And obviously thankful for so many of those teammates. But, all of a sudden, I get the phone call a few weeks later after that, Andy Reid, the same guy that I was playing against on that Eagles game, wanted to trade for me. And here it was. And it was so funny. It was ironic. The Niners won 2 games the year before I got here. That's the irony of being the number 1 pick, right? You go to a really terrible team. And a lot of dysfunction, and I didn't help it, right? I was, like I said, I was kind of my own worst enemy. And 8 years later, I get traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. They have the number 1 pick. They won 2 games the year before. And here it was, a fresh, how many times do we get a second chance? And I've taken everything I've learned over those 8 years, the good, the bad, and I'm ready for this. And I got a new opportunity, and let's go. And I'm going to do it differently this time, right? And I'm not going to be distracted. And it was amazing. It really, like I said, catapulted the rest of my career. It was the best, probably 5 years of my career. Went to several Pro Bowls. We went to the playoffs for it 5 years, won a bunch of divisions. And it really solidified that kind of what's next mentality, not going to be distracted no matter the moment, no matter the heightened pressure, the lights, whatever, right? The great challenge in that, can I be locked in? Can I eliminate distractions and be focused on what's next? And so, it really solidified there. And then I felt like I did it again. We drafted a young kid named Patrick Mahomes, and there it was again, right? Was I going to look over my shoulder? Mm-hmm. Was I going to be distracted? Or no, I knew I still kind of had the keys to the car, so to speak, and what was I going to go do with that? And, again, ended up having a career year with that, in the face of that, and led to another opportunity, right? Obviously, I get traded to Washington, and still felt like I had a ton of football left ahead of me. at that point. Still feel like I was really young at heart, and my career was only ascending. I was just coming off my career year, and then obviously real adversity hits. So
all of the, and I think everybody probably knows about the leg situation, but this preamble is great because everything you just described and the achievements you made, the end of your 49er career, as you said, excellent, and then the Kansas City run, excellent. All those things had to have helped you to deal with the what's next.
No doubt. Without it.
The worst what next
absolutely.
you could, right.
I'm not sitting here today if I don't go through all that.
Right.
Yeah. I needed to. I had never, and I kind of mentioned in the beginning, I had never dealt with anything like that in life. I had never dealt with expectations like that, pressure like that. And you have to be able to go through something like that, I think, and being honest with yourself to ever grow from it, right? And it was something that I'll take with me for the rest of my life as adversity comes, and certainly with my leg, with mentoring two young quarterbacks right behind me that are trying to take my job, getting traded twice. In all those moments of life, it's something that I still lean on. I still go back to a lot of those lessons that I learned the hard way, and I think I did. Again, I needed to go through that. I needed to experience it. I needed to be tested in that way.
Yeah. And an exceptional family.
Oh, yeah, I mean, and obviously, I think you realize in those moments how much you appreciate the people around you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do a pivot here, and then eventually we'll let you all ask Alex some questions. But you're watching, by the way, the weight room at the University of Utah's football facility, which is a top-tier facility. And I was bragging on your school earlier. I was saying the 10 years of the Pac-12, it's the best football program. What Kyle Whittingham has built there, it's been exceptional. And when you look at college football today, just open it up as a blank canvas for you. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly an inflection point. This is, college football, I think, as we knew it and loved it, the traditional conferences, the bowl game matchups, I think that era, unfortunately, is gone, and it's not coming back. I don't think that necessarily is a bad thing, though, right? I mean, I think, again, going back to what's next, well, what can we do with the changes that have been made to make sure college football improves, right? That it still stays, the things that we do love about it are still there. For me, Utah is an example. Like, I grew up, Utah was in the WAC. I played in the Mountain West. We always aspired to be in the big conferences and to play at a high level, right? None of the guys there got recruited by the big schools and therefore had a little bit of a chip on our shoulder. And so when Utah got invited to the Pac-12 and kind of the steady climb this last year, we made the Rose Bowl. I mean, it didn't get much better as an alumni. And then now to see, obviously the rumors of SC and UCLA potentially leaving, who knows what's going to happen in the Pac-12. The Big 12 is kind of in disarray as well. That it's headed to something that obviously TV money is driving all of this, and that, it's going to end up looking a lot like the NFL, right? I mean, in my opinion, which is very driven by TV money, that you're going to get you're potentially going to get the 40 to 50 best schools in the country all linking up and joining together and doing their own TV deal, right? And it's big matchups every week, and they would have their own playoff system, kind of, which would be, I don't know what that would look like for the rest of the schools in the country. The Utahs, I'm not sure I don't know if they make that. But NIL's not going anywhere. Transfer portal's not going anywhere. I think, obviously, that a lot of things got to shake out.
Difference. I was asking about this because your position in particular, and I know we have some other quarterbacks in the room here, the pros have all of this, but the pros have structure. There's rules in place.
Yes.
And right now, college football has no structure. So you can be a free agent every day of every year and transfer unlimited time. And I've seen this in my time in the quarterback room. Quarterbacks don't sit. Coaches now have come to grips with the fact they can't have a whole lot of quarterbacks in their room at one time because if you're not playing, you're going to go.
Well, the real hard part for me, and I think the unfortunate thing, especially to come back to Bill, some of the best coaches in my life and most influential were tough-loving coaches, right? They didn't always tell you what you wanted to hear. They really pushed you. Urban Meyer is he's hard to be around, right? But he made me better. Jim Harbaugh is not like a peach, like, so, but what do you do now? You're a recruit and you come into a school and Bill Campbell tells you, get your head out of your, or you just say, hey, see you later. Enough of this for me, right? I mean, it's so easy just to take the easy way out, to go somewhere else. The grass is always greener. You're not going to get to stick it out. And that was the beautiful relationship with especially college coaches, like developing human beings, right? Like, I mean, I know football is the forum, but really it's about life. And these are life lessons that we're gaining in this environment. And I think it's hard to do that with the transfer portal, with the NILs, the constant free agency. How do you tough love a kid? How do you help them develop and reach their potential sometimes if they're always just they're out the door, or you're worried about losing them? So I think that's a real question, and I think makes coaching really hard.
Yeah. If the transfer portal had been in play, were you right away at Utah? Did you go right in and start?
No, I
You redshirted.
I was redshirting halfway through the year, and I got pulled out of my redshirt, and I ended up playing 7 plays, and I lost my whole year. Ooh. One of my 7 plays was a pick 6 at San Diego State, my hometown, like my whole high school.
Yeah.
I feel like all my friends were there. Yeah. But anyway, no. So I lost my whole year. There.
That was a bad rule. Thank God that one went away. I mean, I'm just wondering how you would have reacted in your time if you're not playing, and if you had the open door to go like you do today.
Yeah, I think from a player's perspective, it's certainly the NIL and the transfer portal is empowering from a player's perspective, right? It gives you a lot of choices, a lot of opportunities, a lot of things at your disposal, and a lot of them are great, I think. The NIL for me is something that I don't necessarily have a hard, that I don't have as hard a time for that.
Right.
For me, certainly I do think there needs to be some, some probably bumpers put on it and regulations at least. But the transfer thing, really, in having free agency in college football has really kind of changed the entire concept of football, because where there was so much loyalty and selflessness, and again, being part of something bigger, your school, and embodying that, the relationship with the student body and that community. And you don't quite have that as much of that now with the guys bouncing around.
Yeah. Continuity, right? Doesn't that be the word? You need continuity. You had the same group of players together or the bulk of the same group of players together for a couple of years.
Yeah, coming together to try to achieve something bigger than themselves, right? And the whole time getting their education. I think that there's something special about that, whereas, I think it gets, certainly probably a little diluted. You're bouncing around, and it's a little more obviously of a business. Yeah.
You look out here and you see this collection of awfully accomplished and successful people that all played college football. Like I said, this is where we had a little group up here earlier, and I know it's easy to descend a little bit into what's wrong with college athletics and structure right now, and it's truth-telling, but it's also not trying to be negative because there's so much good.
Yeah.
That's why you're here. Perfect example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I think obviously preaching to the choir here, but the life lessons learned from having to balance, football and school and everything else in life, and to be able to set goals and work towards them, be able to focus, I think, to deal with pressure and adversity when it comes. Those are things that, again, a little battle tested, that when you come out in life, like, you're going to take with you forever, right? I mean, I think that's why Bill, coming to Silicon Valley, he had it about him, right? Like, I mean, he had been in crazy, intense, stressful situations, right? And you come out, you're like, you keep your wits about you. You're on to what's next. You're helping stay focused. I think that certainly, I think in the business world and in life, is something that not a lot of people have. And everybody obviously here has it, and I think and therefore is better off and better equipped for what's going to come next, and certainly in their path or their journey.
So what did you say to Mike Singletary? Pretty poised. He dodged that question the first time. Did you notice that?
I wish I could remember.
You know what? Let's let you all, if you'd like to ask some questions of Alex, and I think we have some microphones. Hey, thank you. We have some microphones here, and if we don't, I'll make sure I repeat. Why don't you right there where you're standing right there. Go ahead, sir.
You had to be physically scared when you came back. How did you deal with the fear of your leg?
Yeah.
And did it take a while? Did you ever feel normal again, like after you returned after your leg injury?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely battled fear throughout my entire rehab. I mean, face to face with it every day as I would kind of go step to step on my rehab process, right? I mean, I couldn't even stand. I was in a wheelchair. I had a steel cage bolted to my leg. I mean, for months and months, I was wheelchair bound. They were still talking about cutting off my leg for a long time, and just terrified that the infection's going to come back, that my bone's not going to heal. That, like, there were a lot of hiccups along the way that you're scared to death. I just thought my life was over, right? And like when it happened, I thought I was stuck in the rearview mirror. You name every activity I had done or taken for granted in my life, most of all around my kids and my wife and my family and friends, that I'll never be able to do again. And I was just stuck, and I would just play it over and over with, oh, there's that memory, I'll never be able to do it again. There's that thing, I'll never be able to do that again. And I was just stuck in that. Real self-doubt and fear. And thankful for the military's role in my recovery, because it was a huge wake-up call for me, a lot like the Harbaugh thing, to really get out of my own way and get back to what's next and moving forward with my life. Not stop pretending, and for me, this is a reality. Waking up every day, like this is my leg. It's not going back. They basically removed half my leg. I'm not getting that back. And not scared to find out what I got left, right? Not scared to fail. And so moving forward, I'm obviously incredibly fortunate that this could have gone a lot of different directions with where I was at one point. But all of a sudden, fast forward 2 years later, I'm getting cleared. I finally got clearance 2 years later. This is COVID had hit. I'm kind of doing rehab on my own, trying to figure out if I can play football. And I hadn't had any imaging done on my leg for a long, long time. And I go get a big round of x-rays and CT scans and MRIs, and I finally get clearance to play. And I'm absolutely, I get this amazing news that I sit down with the doctors and my wife, I get this amazing life news. I didn't think I was ever going to finally hear this. Like, hey, your bone's healed, right? Like, I have permanent drop foot amongst a bunch of other stuff down here, but from a standpoint of my bone and health moving forward, like I got clearance finally. And it was amazing life news, and I'm like peppering them with questions. I'm like, hey, so I can go skiing? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, snowboarding, mountain biking, right? Like, I'm just like all these things that I thought I'd never be able to do again. Because for 2 years, I'd been walking around on eggshells. And I finally get this clearance, and like, it's just this amazing life news. But I also, my stomach drops, like a huge pit in my stomach, because it hits me like, they're going to tell me I can play football. And this was something that when I set out to do, I never thought I would actually get there. Honestly, like I thought it wouldn't be in the cards. It just was crazy talk. But I knew if I tried to get there, hey, maybe I'd get close and the rest of my life would look better. But I never thought I'd actually get there. Well, here it is. Like, I'm 1,000 steps in between. Talk about what's next. I just got told I can walk between the white lines again, and just scared to death in that moment. And I really want my wife to bail me out. I really want her. We leave the meeting with the doctors, and we go sit in the car, and we just sit there for half an hour. And it was like one of the most intimate conversations we've ever had. And I'm praying that she gives me like the lifeline. Like, she says, you know what, babe, 2 years, you just got this news. Like, let's just go on with our life, I'm hoping she tells me this, because I would jump on it, because she carried a huge burden over those 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I think she can kind of sense my anxiety. Again, talk about being distracted. Like, in that moment, I just got great news, right? But all of a sudden, my stomach drops. I got all this anxiety. My mind's going all these places. Like, what if I go out there and embarrass myself? What if I go out there and my leg breaks again? I mean, last time I was out there, it snapped. All these things. And she kind of helps me through that, right? We talked a long time about regret, about 2 years of hard work that I've been working towards this, that here the experts had just told me that I was okay to go try it. And not being scared, and would I, years down the line, would I be kicking myself if I didn't go see this through? So I do. I'm thankful for her nudge, but I go into preseason that year. Because of COVID, there's no preseason games. And I'm kind of I'm the old leftovers for the new coaching staff, and I'm a liability, right? They don't want to. I can't get reps. I kind of get a few 7-on-7 reps, but I'm like a kid in a candy store. I got my helmet back on. I've been lacing up my cleats finally. I never thought I'd be able to do that again. So I'm kind of happy with my 3 7-on-7 reps I get a day, and next thing you know, I make the 53-man roster. And I'm the 53. I'm the third string, though. So, like, I'm pumped. I made the team. This is amazing. I'm practicing every day. I'm not getting any reps at this point when you're the 3. And fast forward, though, like, they pull the starter. This is, I think, week 6. So I get bumped up to the backup, and I get to run scout team that week. And that was the most reps I had gotten in 2 years. I'm running scout team reps like a kid in a candy store. This is awesome. Like, I'm loving, like, there's talk about it. No one cares. When you run scout team, you could throw 40 interceptions. No one cares, right? But like, I'm out there. I'm trying to like dice up our defense. I'm having fun, and like, mind you, I haven't practiced in 2 years, so I got a lot of rust. I also got this playing with this goofy brace. I got drop foot. No one's really ever played with drop foot before. Meanwhile, I got half a lower leg too. I got half a calf. Like, I'm trying to figure this out, see if I can do it. And I'm starting to get a little comfortable. Like, I think I might be able to operate. Yeah, I got to modify. I got to adjust. I can't run around like I used to, but I think I can do this. And I'm like, man, wouldn't this be nice? I'm going to get a few weeks to do scout team maybe before my number gets called. Sure enough, it's that first game. This is the first game I get to dress, mind you, because third stringers don't dress. So I finally get to dress. And once you know it, starter gets hurt, boom, takes this big hit. I knew it right away. I'm like, here we go. So I'm like throw on my helmet, I go get a ball, a couple catches, and in that moment of running out there, I haven't been tackled in 2 years. The last time I stepped on the field, a guy named J.J. Watt shattered my leg, right? Here I am 2 years later on TV running out. And this last big hurdle, I've kind of played, I knew I could operate. I have not been tackled in 2 years, right? Quarterbacks wear bright yellow jerseys in practice. We're untouchable. You kind of have this false sense. No preseason that year. I've never been tackled. I'm scared to death. I'm going to, like, what's this going to look like when I go out there, right? But then I think for me, everything that I'd learned, what do you do with that voice in your head, right? For me, it was about acknowledging it and moving it aside and, like, what an amazing challenge this is. In this moment, can I run out there? Can I block out that voice in my head? Because I'm also jacked up. I'm super pumped. I never thought I'd get this opportunity again. So I got a lot of voices going on, and like, could I silence all of them? Can I run out there and lock into the details and do my job for my team, right? The other 10 guys in the huddle, the other 53 guys on the sideline, like, can I go do it? Can I ignore all that? And I got this opportunity that I never thought would happen again, and can I go out there and do it? And the challenge of that, and like relishing the challenge of that. And so it was amazing. So yeah, but sure enough, third play of the game, guy named Aaron Donald, another 3-time defensive MVP, jumps on my back. And I played football in 25 years. I've never been tackled like that in my entire life. I never had a human being jump on my back. And he slings around and he jumps on my back like this. And you know when things slow down, when you're kind of like hyper-focused, and I remember like very distinctly, like, I've got it. I didn't know it was him at the time, but like, I got a human being on my back. And kind of like thinking wisely, like it was like half a second where I'm like carrying him, and I kind of think better of it and like get down, and like honestly, still life-changing moment getting back up, that moment of getting back up, and I'll have that with me for the rest of my life. And I have a lot of people that are like, why the hell did you go play football? Like why? Like for a stupid game. And for me, it was about that. Like the rest of my life, the mental freedom of knowing that I'm not fragile, that I can go figure out a way, I can adapt, and I'll have that with me for the rest of my life. And that game was a disaster, by the way. It started raining. They were the number 1 defense in the NFL. I got sacked like 4 more times. It was bad. But from there on out, I never thought about my leg again. I went on to start 6 games. I won 5 of them. We won the division. Like, changed my life, that moment. But yeah, to a long-winded answer, I was scared to death.
See, I learned something about football just now. All these men down here who play all are nodding when you talked about life-changing moments just now. Getting back up, right? He's been through it. That's very cool.
Microphone, somebody's going to ask another question.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yeah, we've got the mic.
Yeah, Alex.
Oh, okay.
I'm curious, now that you mentioned the military's role in your rehab, I'm curious to know a little bit more about that. But my question is, who was there for you, not the week you got injured or the month after, but who was there for you a year after? Who did you turn to, and what did they do that really helped you, mentally, or what was it about their influence that you turned to them for?
Oh, my wife and kids. My kids were my daily motivation of banking. Like, I was a long time, like I said, when I was in the wheelchair, I was a spectator in my household. I couldn't take part in much at all, if anything. And I was literally just a spectator in my kids' life as they went, and my wife did an amazing job of kind of keeping normalcy for them and nursing me. And but every single day, like I couldn't go do things with them. I couldn't take them places. I couldn't go be a part of shared experiences. And so I banked all that, and that's really was my pursuit. Like, why I ultimately said I ever uttered the words like I want to try and play football again. It was really just about getting my life back with them and my wife. My wife daily, I think, as far as like a psychologist, the ups and downs. Like, there were so many days where I'd hit a roadblock or I'd plateau in my rehab and just think like, I'm never going to get past this, right? I think this is the end of the road. And her helping me work through that, to get back and get up and get refocused. And but certainly the military changed my life. I couldn't even look at my leg when I went down there. And so the military really got involved because there were no athletes had ever gone through something like this. So there was no roadmap for me to go down, right? It's not like tearing an ACL and like, hey, this is exactly what you do. It was really a huge unknown. No one had come back from this and dealt with it. And the military was the closest examples. Obviously our wars in the Middle East, numerous servicemen and women had come back with similar lower leg injuries, through roadside bombs and IEDs and things. And a lot of them had gone back to service and serve at a high level. And so that was really the roadmap that I followed, and was fortunate enough that I got what was called the Secretary of Defense designation that lets civilians get access to military care. And so I went down to the Center for the Intrepid in San Antonio, which is this rehab center that specializes in this. And I'm sulking and feeling sorry for myself. I think, thinking my life's over. I can't even stand up at this point on my leg. And can't look at my leg, it looks gnarly. And I get down there, and servicemen and women, obviously, that have injuries that are way worse than mine, and a lot of them with injuries just like mine, are out in the open. Everybody does the rehab out in the open, scars out in the open, amputations out in the open, and they're moving forward, and they're like getting after it. And again, I think like I was obviously pretending. I was like trying to act like this hadn't happened. This wasn't my reality. And it was a great example, again, for me in that moment of where I needed to get to. And so much, I think, of leadership and mentorship is an example. It's not just what you're saying, right? It's not preaching. It's like how you live in your life. And so as I think back along, like I said, all these people that have had huge impacts on me, it was really how they were going about their business, how they approached life and challenges that really, provided and really had great impact on me. So really, and I did a lot of my rehab down there, and it was like daily watching these men and women get after it and overcome way more than I was dealing with. And, really kind of gave me the, courage I need and wake-up call that I needed to get focused onto what's next.
You have it right there? Go right ahead.
All right, I've got a son at home, Leighton, who is just starting to play football. He's a sports nut, very excited you're here. He just found out that he's going to be starting quarterback. So he wanted me to ask you a couple questions. He wanted to know your favorite football moment and if you've got any advice for him starting his kind of quarterback career.
Yeah, I don't have a single greatest moment. I think I take things with me from high school and college and pros. Like, there's still things that are just unforgettable experiences usually about a group of guys coming together and, achieving something or going through something together.
I thought you were going to talk about the Saints playoff.
Well, certainly the ones that, Utah, when we went undefeated and we clinched back then, we were the little guys that that broke down the BCS, and we were the first ones to do it. And that was something that was really special. It was a goal we had set out together and achieved, and was amazing to do. But certainly I drive by Candlestick Point and the stadium not there, and it bums me out every time I do because it was such a special place. And the Saints game, again, we had dared to think that we finally climb out of this 6-year hole that we were in, and we just had made the playoffs. We were playing the big bad Saints. They were supposed to steamroll us. They were in their prime. That offense was like high flying. I was a game manager at that point, and so we weren't even gonna come close to them, and we went toe to toe, punch for punch, all the way down the line, and still one of the greatest fourth quarters I think in football history. And then to throw, the game-winning pass to Vernon, he makes the amazing catch, and Candlestick goes absolutely ballistic. And that also ended up turning out to be the Bounty Gate game, and it was very apparent the Saints defense lived up to that. They were a bunch of assholes, and and it felt amazing to come out on top in that moment and to share that again. That so many of those guys, the Frank Gores, the Joe Staley's, the Vernon Davises, that we had been through so many horrible years together as Niners, and then to finally dig our way out felt amazing. Yeah.
Okay. Here, I'll repeat it for the back. Go ahead.
When you talk about when you went to Kansas City, you somehow found a way to eliminate distraction. I'd love to hear a list, but now more so life after football. How can we eliminate distraction?
Question is toward Alex talking about eliminating distractions, especially Kansas City. Question is, how can we all in life eliminate distractions?
Yeah, I think, again, two things. One, when that voice goes off in your head, because, again, adversity comes at us externally, internally, all the time. We don't know when it's coming, what it's going to look like, but I think it's really being cognizant of what it does to you, right, mentally. Because you got it, again, being aware of when the self-talk does go negative or something, or you're out of the moment, you got to realize it first before you can correct it. So I think being far more cognizant of it. The other thing, when I set out to play football again, and I couldn't even stand when I said it. I said I want to play. It was I might as well have said I want to go to Mars, right? It was it was outrageous at that moment. They're still talking about cutting off my leg, and I'm I want to play football again. And I think though that which is a great, lofty goal to put this out there. I think if I'd have daily been focusing on that, I never would have gotten there. I would have just been completely distracted, right? Frustrated. I'm not even close. This is stupid. But instead, honestly, once that finally did, and again, going back to the military helped me with this, I really lived what's the next step? What do I need to do to get to right there? And I was okay, well, I got to be able to stand, and I'm going to do everything in my power to stand, and I'm going to work for that for weeks and weeks, that I'm going to be able to put weight on my leg. And once I did that, a very small little celebration, and then, well, what do I need to do next now? Well, I got to be able to transfer my weight. I got to be able to take baby steps, and doing everything in my power. And that was my daily focus. And I literally just marched along. I had my head down on very small, achievable goals that were going to lead me to where I wanted to go. And I think to do anything that we put out there, again, that's it. It's the details, right? I want to go, whatever you're trying to do that you put out there. And I think it's important to say it and write it down and manifest it. But that's not what your daily focus is on, right? That's not in the moment. You got to be, what can I do right now that's going to make a difference? And they're small differences, right? They're minuscule, but they compound, right? Daily, that's what adds up. There's no magic, right? There's no magic dust, or hey, you're not these huge quantum leaps to get to things. That's just not how things are done. That's not how things are achieved. So they're very tangible, they're very small, and you're locked in on them, right? And I think the kind of combination of that. And then again, when the bump in the road comes up or something, and you got to realize okay, well, I got to get back on, right? I'm distracted, or this adversity hit. How can I get around it? How can I get around this roadblock? And then get back on your path. I think for me, that's how I view, like anything as it comes up. Like, well, what can I do now? What can I do now that's going to make a difference?
Good. We have there we go. Go ahead.
I'm Andrew Whitaker from WashU. You've got some great coaches, Urban Meyer, Jim Harbaugh. You can see the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. What have you learned from these coaches, and how have you used that to be an impact player and elevate your teammates?
Yeah, I think I take things from all those coaches that have helped me. Like I said, I mentioned the part about Jim, like the example he set, just is it's what I needed, especially in that moment for me. He would say literally right before every game, he would say the exact same thing to us before we took the field, the exact same thing. He would say, play as hard as you can, as fast as you can, for as long as you can, and don't worry. And I remember in that moment, I felt like literally I thought he was talking directly to me. Man, he knows when this whole don't worry thing, that encompassed my first 6 years, worry. Yeah. And so, yeah, that embodied, that I definitely took that with me all the time. Andy Reid, I don't think you can meet somebody that loves football and teaching and developing people as much as Andy Reid does, right? And how much joy he has and laughter and fun doing it, and that you can have fun doing it, right? Yeah, it's a grind, but you can have fun in the grind, and that's something that I continually take with me. I think, so I think that from all my coaches, there's stuff that toughness, what is really toughness is something I think that that word gets thrown around a lot. Grit, those are certainly things up here that, again, I think come back to all this mindset, mentality, our ability to get back on track when things go wrong, to stay focused on the now, to be present. Those are all, I think things that take with me through life that I've tried as I got older. I very much tried to talk about the things that I dealt with as a young player when I would talk. I could see it on young guys, right? Before games, I could see the guys that had anxiety that were wearing it. And for me, it was far more about, let's talk about it. Let's put this out there. It's real because we're all dealing with it, right? And now, isn't this amazing that we get to do this, right? And despite all of that, let's lock in for each other, right? Those are things that now I'm talking to my kids about it, as they get ready to, school and life and things and sports that they're doing.
Okay, here we go.
You mentioned a conversation with your wife right after you got at the news. How, through this, when you reflect back, did your relationship with your wife and your kids evolve through that adversity?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, my leg, certainly all the ups and downs of my career, and I know this certainly well now after not playing. It's almost worse when you're not playing, right? It's the stress and it's worse being the spectator if you're invested, if you have somebody playing or a friend or it's your school. When you're in it, you actually have a little bit of a say. So I think it's a little bit of a relief in that, right? At least you have something to do. when you're not, all you're left with is your thoughts, right? And so my wife had certainly ridden that and been a part of that for 16 years, and my kids as well. So they knew all too well the ups and downs and the battle of it, right? The adversity that came with that. But then everything with my leg, and the first time for us certainly as a family nucleus to deal with something like that, and everything that, again, I was helpless. There was far more pressure on my wife and kids, and they really carried a huge burden throughout that process. Well, it's so funny, COVID hit after that, right? And the world freaked out, and everybody's, I felt I remember distinctly, certainly everybody changed, but for us, I felt that I was immune compromised in this infection risk for 2 years, so we'd already been living through something similar. COVID kind of came along, and we were oh, this isn't that. We were I felt pretty hardened for that, So yeah, I think it's something that certainly you go through something like that together daily, and yeah, you get better, you get tighter, stronger together. Yeah.
Good. Okay, right here, front. I'll repeat it again. Oh, it's Quentin. Hi, Quentin.
So we played against each other in 2016.
All right.
What was your experience playing at Mile High Stadium?
What? Let me say. The question is what? Actually, they had a game against each other. What was the experience playing in Mile High Stadium in Denver?
Yeah, I was completely naive to like the old AFC the West, and this is obviously the old AFL and a bunch of the old rivalries. You know, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Chiefs, and like all the history there. And it was something that I grew to love every single one of those rivalries because they were so real. And I had no idea. I still tell people I get asked all the time about stadiums and what's the best place to play and like yada yada yada. And I still think Denver has one of the most underrated fan bases and home field advantages in all of football. And it has like nothing to do with the elevation, but very much to do with that crowd and that stadium and how much pride they have for football and their team. And those are things that when you get to pro football, not every stadium has something like that. There's a lot that are very corporate settings, but not Denver. And a lot of it like is regional, the Midwest, and kind of they have something, and Denver kind of included in that. I think they have that same kind of vibe, and it's fun to play in front of. Even though they're screaming at you, and they scream incomplete every time you throw an incompletion, but you learn to like that's what's special about sports. Right? That's why we love sports, those kinds of rivalries.
You had it in Kansas City. Come on, how loud those fans.
Yeah, which was amazing, right?
God,
Like there was nothing
loud.
better than being on the other side of that, and Arrowhead was
Yeah.
rocking, and like to see Peyton Manning out there struggling or something, which was rare.
Rare,
But
right.
when it did, it was nice to see.
One last question.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, wait a minute. Do we have somebody with a microphone? Oh, I'm sorry, we have a. Okay, sorry.
Thanks. You've shown a commitment to teamwork, mentorship, and development, first with the story we heard about Cap, and then also helping develop at Patrick. To help someone who will take your job, who you see as a rising star, especially when you're performing well, I'm imagining it's easy to say the right things, but really hard to do in reality. Can you talk about your specific actions and philosophies in those moments?
Yeah. Really my mindset came down to, in both instances with Cap and Pat, as much as the media, especially obviously with Pat, when that like got blown up, we moved up in the draft, took him, like he's obviously my heir apparent in the replacement. How much time do I have left? A lot, like what just happened here with the Niners and, Trey and Jimmy. And then playing in the midst of that, right? Running out there knowing like your days are numbered. For me, it was not buying into the narrative that Pat and Mai's trajectory do this, right? Like that they are conflicting. And very much realizing very quickly, like the longer I'd played, for me that was going into year 13. And so you very much realize like guys that had long careers and Hall of Famers and guys that had longevity and success, really it looked a lot lately like playing alongside him, like it was really more like this, right? Like if I continue to play well and reach my potential and show that I can play at this level, there's gonna be an opportunity out there. I'm gonna have a place to go and play. Now, unfortunately, it may not be wearing those colors again and in Kansas City, but like for me, I didn't know where it was going to come, but like if I could continue to not be distracted by Pat and not buy into this kind of narrative that like, well, I got to continue down my road and I got to reach my potential and show that I can like, play at a high level and do this, and I'm not going to look over my shoulder because that's only going to prevent me from getting there, right? And the proof was like I'd already gone through it with Cap. Like I'd lived it. Like there was going to be another opportunity. Like if I could handle the situation, just like Jimmy will have another opportunity because he handled so well this year. But like, not buying into that, right? Like there's 32 teams out there. Everybody's looking for jobs. Like there's a lot of places, like not buying in the fact that he and I are pitted against each other, that we do play a team sport. We all signed up for this. The fact that like, if I help him in the meeting room or on the sidelines, like, what does that have to do with me going out there and doing my job at a high level? And really, ultimately, we went to the playoffs that year, obviously lost in the playoffs, but that was the deciding factor in my future. It had, Pat had no say in it. I mean, he didn't get to pick where he got drafted, just like I didn't get to pick where I got drafted. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, neither of us got to make those decisions. And so letting them distract either of us was only going to, it was only going to be, again, a distraction for me from what I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. So
that is so rare, what you just heard. It speaks to why this man is special, right? How hard, human beings, how hard that is to do. Just look at Favre and Aaron Rodgers, right? Everything you've heard about, everything we've heard about that. That's what makes Alex Smith special. Yeah.
A round of applause.
Thank you. No, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Mark. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.